Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda Beal, Commissioner of the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. Welcome and thank you for joining me today and for your support and participation in this year's virtual agricultural trade show. Although I know we'd all like to be together in person, I do hope you enjoy the program ahead. When I was thinking about what to highlight in this session, I found myself wondering what kinds of crops are farmers growing in Maine right now in January? That led to the idea of taking you all on a bit of a virtual journey to visit with some farmers who are using different types of technology to enable year-round production. This was a low budget, or really a no budget project that we recorded over the course of a couple of cold days this month, as we dropped in on some people that I think you will be interested in hearing from and about. So first, we'll go to Southern Maine Community College to talk with Cheryl Rich, Director of the Horticulture Program, to hear from her about the kinds of skills that students are learning in that program and how they utilize their campus greenhouse for education and to support the horticulture program. Next, we'll visit with Trevor Kenkel, who founded Springworks Farm in Lisbon and now runs the company along with his sister Sierra. Trevor, Sierra, and the Springworks team are raising greens and fish in an aquaponics system. Then we'll jump over and take a tour of Four Season Farm in Harborside with Barbara Damrosch and Elliot Coleman, farmers and renowned authors who have inspired and taught other farmers in Maine and well beyond how to grow food in unheated or low-heat greenhouses. And then we'll finish up by presenting the annual Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Commissioner's Distinguished Service Award, and we'll hear a few words from Governor Mills. So, prepare to be inspired, and I hope you enjoy this journey.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about this particular greenhouse structure and what works or what are some challenges with these materials and this design?
Sure. So this greenhouse is probably 25 years old. It's served us very well. And at the time that it was built, it was really quite state-of-the-art, had all the bells and whistles. But as the technology has improved, we've done our best to keep up with it. So this greenhouse is all computerized. We have a 6-zone irrigation system. We have a controller that takes care of the differential on the heat, so it comes on at a certain time, goes off at a certain time. The ventilation system is all computerized as well, so they're all kind of synced together. We've been able to bring in a number of different ponic type of technology to be able to show. Some of the other things that we have in here that are helpful that people might find interesting, we have rolling benches. We're not maximizing our growing spaces in here simply because we have to have a lot of people in here at once when the class is meeting. But the rolling benches can allow for much better benching efficiency in a greenhouse as long as you're not having retail customers. If we wanted to maximize this space, we could have 3 or 4 more benches on that side. And all we really need to maintain at any given time is an 18-inch space for workers to be able to get down in between. So that's a simple little thing, but it can really help with benching efficiency and your ability to maximize your profit per square foot. We've done a few little modifications. You can see that we've got the shade cloth in here to provide a little bit of protection when we need to. We've got some supplemental light, a couple of different types of light, just to be able to kind of demonstrate for the students. So this space, what it does allow us to do is demonstrate a bunch of different things. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about the pros and cons of each of the different types of technology and the different setups. We would love to have the in-ground heat. We'd love to have some, perhaps, different type of benching systems to be able to demonstrate. But my colleagues do a really nice job of connecting our students with the industry so that if we can't physically show it here, the students are getting out and experiencing it other places.
So where do students that come out of this program, where do they go out into the world and work?
Oh my goodness. We have students that go into landscape design, landscape installation, landscape maintenance, market gardeners, agriculture, greenhouse growers, nursery and garden center work, arborists, golf course management, golf course turf management.
They're really all over the place.
It really is. It really is. Our program is quite broad. And so we try to touch on as many aspects of horticulture as we can to give our students a very rounded experience. We have a lot of folks that'll come in with one idea in their head of what horticulture is, and then they realize that, oh my goodness, I had no idea. But we're very broad. And we rely heavily or lean heavily on our internship programs to give our students an opportunity to take a deep dive in their area of interest.
Is that a requirement?
It is. It is. Most of our students complete that during the summer semester, but there is an ability to do that any time of the year. And the students just come back with the real world experience. We try to be as hands-on and as in-depth as we can with our program, but there's nothing like getting out in the field and working. And working under the leadership of someone who's been in the industry for a while. Our program is academically rigorous, but we complement it with as much hands-on experience as we possibly can. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. The landscape management class, the soils and soil fertility class, the woody plant identification, the herbaceous plant identification, landscape surveying and mapping, landscape design, all of those courses are hands-on. And we're out working with the campus, working with other properties, working with plant materials, doing soil digs and soil profiles at a farm in Cape Elizabeth, and so it's working out very well.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Do you, in talking about plants and plant health, and maybe not so much in a greenhouse setting, but in the program, do you talk about climate change and the impacts of some of the things that we're seeing, new pests, changing weather patterns, different water availability during the season?
Those topics find their way into almost all of our classes. I teach the integrated pest management class, and one of the things that we do talk about in there is that, what's starting to happen where we would see just one life cycle of an insect, we're seeing them again later in the season. We talk about the increasing irrigation needs of drier, longer growing seasons. We talk about our expanding plant palette. We can grow zone 6 stuff in certain areas here now, where a few years back that was unheard of. So we do, a number of our classes spend quite a bit of time talking about phenology, and the lilacs are blooming 2 weeks earlier now than a week to 2 weeks earlier than they used to, and how all of the timing of all of those events is so interconnected. The evidence is all around us, if we're willing to pay attention to it. And it's changing the way we do things. It's changing the way we anticipate our water needs, our pest management needs, our weed management strategies. We're seeing different invasives. There it is, right? Sit down. Sit down.
Start it, and what are you doing now?
Sure, yeah. So Springworks was founded 7 years ago with a 6,000 square foot freestanding greenhouse right over here. And over the years, we've grown from delivering directly to restaurants to doing business with with big retailers and food service distributors. We grow lettuce and tilapia using aquaponics, which is a combination of fish and plants in a recirculating system in which the fish provide organic fertilizer for the plants and the plants clean the water for the fish. When we first got started, the plan was to grow a lot of different crops. So at one point we had almost 20 products in our first little greenhouse. And we quickly discovered that there is a lot of complexity to, any individual varietal or product, and we decided to really focus in a narrow band and go really deep in those product lines. So for us initially that was Bib, Greenleaf, and a baby romaine product. And we've since, started to incrementally expand what our product line looks like, but remain very intentional about being able to really fully support a product as we bring it on.
How we trajected into doing individual markets and then going into food service, and now we're in a combination of food service and much more in retail, was we learned a lot about what the integrity of our product brings. We had to pitch other ideas and other things that we were able to bring to the table. It was consistency. It was a year-round product that they could count on. And it also was a beautiful looking product. It was a product where you could get a lot of yield from. And what restaurants are looking for sometimes can be even more scrutinized compared to what your consumer grabs on the shelf. So we really did learn alternate ways and what people are looking for in their greens. Yes, it's certified organic, but it also brings so much more.
So it's a family affair.
Yeah. So Sierra here has been our head of sales and marketing pretty much since the beginning. At various times the whole family has helped out. From 2 a.m. harvest to last minute deliveries down to Boston, and bookkeeping, everything in between. So we've been very intentional about scaling up the business in conjunction with everything else around it. So not just customer base and capital, but also the team we have on site, and trying to size our growth to that.
And so you moved here to be part of this business, isn't that right?
I did. Yes, I did. It's really been a tremendous journey. Like Trevor said, I started off wearing many hats. We had a farm stand when we first started here in Lisbon, which has really created a tremendous community base with our folks. As Trevor has said, our team no longer is just a couple family members. It is a broad network of family at SpringWorks here, and we're delighted to be here in Maine.
Yeah, so we're able to move around plants as they get older. It's a big part of how we gain so much productivity over a typical field. We've got a controlled environment. The root zone itself, we're constantly testing the water. There's all kinds of other biological life, from invertebrates on down to bacteria that are critical to the function of the system as well. And then we've got 3 stages on site. We start our plants completely indoors under LEDs, and then move them out into the greenhouse and space them out as they get older into different densities. And then they float around on essentially an aquatic conveyor belt. So we're able to pull rafts from one side, harvest them, and on the other side transfer, and everything just keeps moving through the greenhouse. And these troughs turn over as fast as half of that space per week. So things are moving through the system really rapidly.
I was really fascinated the last time I was here to learn about how you all have also provided aquaponic systems to schools to teach kids. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we ended up putting the microfarm, which was this little aquaponic kit that went over the top of the 10-gallon aquarium, in a few hundred schools over the course of the first few years that the company was founded, along with curriculum that we developed in conjunction with teachers ranging from elementary school, kind of basic biological principles, all the way up to AP biology. So aquaponics is a wonderful tool in that, at a very simple level, you can explain to young children that there's fish and plants and bacteria working together in this symbiosis, and then at a higher level there's a lot of depth in the chemistry of what's going on and how the plants are actually growing. That can be really interesting as a learning tool as well. And I think it also allowed kids to have an experience with growing and with where food comes from, which is not a given. Most people, their interaction with food is limited to how food is prepared and buying it at a grocery store, not necessarily seeing where it comes from.
You grow the same varieties that grow over winter in the Pacific Northwest, and you plant them September 1st and put them in a movable greenhouse, and then next March, once they're safe on their own, you slide the greenhouse off, grow other crops in it. So I would find myself every September or October giving my business over to California. And I decided, wow, I wonder if we could go a little longer into the fall, start a little sooner in the spring. And the minute we started experimenting with it, voila, the end of winter. And it turned out to be so simple that you didn't need to put heat into a greenhouse. You just needed to create free conditions in there with enough protection that your crops were going to survive the cold. One year, when we put a cold frame inside a greenhouse, and this was the great leap forward, because a greenhouse alone moves the climate in the covered area 500 miles to the south. So I'm no longer in Maine, I'm in New Jersey. And then you reach your hand into the cold frame, and you're another 500 miles to the south, which is Georgia. And anything you can do out of doors in Georgia in the winter, you can grow spinach, we can do here. Yeah, so this is the double coverage.
Oh, wow.
There's Georgia.
Elliot, can you tell us about this structure and talk about different structures or styles of greenhouses that you've worked with?
Well, you might notice that instead of the sort of round Quonset hut look, it has a sort of Gothic arch, that's what we call it. And it sheds the snow much more easily. It is structurally very sound.
And you also notice there is a concrete floor at this end. And this is where we wash and pack vegetables. But you can put up a greenhouse like this for about $5 a square foot. There's no way we could possibly build a washing and packing area for $5 a square foot. So by putting it into one end of a greenhouse, we put minimum heat in here. We keep this just above freezing so our water doesn't freeze. But because it's at one end of a greenhouse, we then get to use the other end for crops that aren't quite as hardy as those that we grow in our totally unheated greenhouse. And it expands the range of fresh vegetables that we have in the winter.
And since we have a cold summer, a short summer on the Maine coast, we sort of give a jump to some of the big, wonderful summer crops like tomatoes and cucumbers and squash in here.
We go first farmer's market on the 1st of June. And nothing makes the first farmer's market quite as successful as if you have tomatoes then. And we get them by starting them in here early, and then they're getting a little extra heat, and it makes all the difference. Again, that's all part of trying to stay in business as a farmer.
So can you talk a little bit about what's the covering on this greenhouse? This looks different than other greenhouses I've been in before.
It is different. It's a product made by a German company, and it's basically a bubble wrap, but it happens to be resistant to sun degradation, and it has a R value of 1.9 or something like that, which is pretty good. But the best thing about it, and it's been in use in Europe for many years, it lasts for up to 25 years.
Wow.
So normally greenhouse growers are replacing the greenhouse plastic usually once every 4 years.
And it's a pain to do.
Yeah. This stuff comes in the same width as the space between the hoops. And you put a special plastic extrusion over each hoop that has slots in it. This plastic has cables on either edge. Put those into the slots and you pull it over section by section. So even on a windy day, you can put this on.
Much more manageable.
And it's more expensive than the usual single layer greenhouse plastic, but because it lasts longer and it has such a good insulating value.
It looks like you've got, a number of different crops growing here. What are some things that do really well?
One of the interesting things, you see kale on both sides of this greenhouse. This is Siberian kale, and this is an interesting variety because every time you pick a leaf, even though it's winter, this variety grows a new leaf. Whereas regular kale is incredibly hardy, but if you cover it with a greenhouse so you can sell it in the winter, every time you pick a leaf, you have one less leaf to pick, and pretty much you exhausted it. The difference is this kale, if you keep it just above freezing, will continue producing very enthusiastically all winter long. So that's why we have it in here where there's a minimum amount of heat. Mm-hmm. We also have Swiss chard, which is worth growing just because it looks so beautiful in the bags at the market. And we have this wonderful lettuce that solves the harvesting problem because these don't grow a big head. These grow a head with multiple small leaves. So you just wrap your hand around it with one cut. And then as you can see, the ones that were harvested earlier are growing back up for a second or a third cut.
Yeah.
So these are just things you look around and you say, okay, we have this problem, is there a way to solve it? And then you solve it.
It's called Salanova, and lots of farmers love it.
Yeah.
It also isn't like a head lettuce where you have a sort of stem that it comes off of. Everything comes from the bottom. So when you cut it for a salad, the whole thing just falls open. And even the cooks prefer it often. The first book Elliot wrote was The New Organic Grower, and it was just the basics about having a small farm. But then he started to branch out more in terms of the winter harvest idea. And we originally had this little, maybe 60-page comb-bound pamphlet, a little manual. And we used to sell it when we were lecturing all over the place. Johnny's would sell a lot of them. Fedco, another great Maine seed company, sold a lot of them. Eventually, he turned that into a book. He wrote The Four-Season Harvest, which was more aimed at home gardeners. And then, what came next?
The winter harvest.
The winter harvest
handbook.
Handbook, as opposed to not the manual, the little flyer, but the handbook. And that has been translated into how many languages?
Yeah, it's
French,
been
German,
popular.
something else.
Other
Several
places
others.
where they have hard winters. But
Yeah.
my favorite story about this was when she first encountered my book. Since both of our first books had come out at about the same time, her primer and mine, she said her first thought was, what's new about it?
You mean the new organic grower?
Yeah.
What's new about him? Right, but then his publisher said that my book was the competition.
Now I get to do something that we do every year, usually at the Agricultural Trade Show, which is to present to you, Barbara and Elliot, the 2022 Commissioner's Distinguished Service Award. You are being recognized for your pioneering work here at Four Season Farm, demonstrating the opportunity to grow food in Maine all year round, and as innovators who have both contributed greatly in your decades of writing and farming, inspiring and educating new farmers and gardeners in countless ways. You have also demonstrated that the impact of small-scale sustainable agriculture can be great, both in terms of producing an abundant harvest and in teaching others how to grow food in a way that protects and conserves natural resources while enriching the communities that a farm serves. So congratulations to you both.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you,
I'll hand
Amanda.
this
That's
to
very nice
you,
of her.
Elliot. I also have one more thing, and then you can, share some thoughts you might have. But I brought you a jar of. I'm thinking about calling it Commissioner's Gold. It's my summer squash relish.
Oh, looks
so
delicious.
That's great.
you can enjoy this. It's a little bit of summer in a jar in the winter.
Well, this is an honor, Amanda, and I thank you very much. But as a farmer, and I think most farmers will say the same thing, we do this because we love it, and we love to produce food that's good for people. So I think all farmers everywhere at some time should get a similar award because they're all doing the same type of work.
And I'd like to give a shout out to MOFGA, because I think one of the reasons so many young people are coming here to farm is because of the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association. And I love that they include gardeners as well as farmers. Maine, I think, is a wonderful place to grow. It used to be the breadbasket of this half of the country before a lot of farmers moved out to the place where they don't have rocks. And but it's got its own wonderful things. The seaweed that washes up on the road sometimes goes into our garden. Just little things like that, and just fantastic people.
And even though there still are rocks, we can remove them just as effectively as our predecessors did. It takes a long time, and it doesn't allow you to expand your production immediately, but eventually all of Maine can be a beautiful farm. I think it's great that the Commissioner of Agriculture is putting out a product.
Well, not yet. Maybe in my spare time someday.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Hello, this is Governor Janet Mills. On behalf of all the people of Maine, I want to congratulate Barbara Damrosch and Elliot Coleman, this year's winners of the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry's Distinguished Service Award. Barbara and Elliot have said that there are two ingredients to successful farming: brilliance and skill. They would know. They've clearly demonstrated both over lifelong careers in our agricultural sector. Their innovative tools and techniques to grow year-round, as well as the books they've written, I own some of them, to teach others across the world to do the same, are transforming agriculture as we know it. Barbara and Elliot, congratulations on this well-deserved honor. Producers like you are at the heart of our agricultural community and at the heart of our state. As the granddaughter of a potato farmer from the county, I know how hard you work every day. I know that this pandemic has brought new and even greater challenges than ever before to Maine's farming communities. Whether you raise livestock, you grow fruits and vegetables, or you tap maple trees or milk cows, I want you to know that I appreciate how you have adapted to meet the challenges of the last 2 years and to feed Maine people. And we're going to continue on that path with our use of federal money to expand the use of greenhouses across this state, make our state and our farmers and our communities more sustainable. I will continue to do all I can to make myself available to you and to make sure you have what you need. Through my Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan, for instance, I've dedicated $20 million in federal funding to farmers and food processors to expand your processing capacity here in Maine. You can apply for that funding starting this Friday, January 14th, on the department's website, maine.gov/DACF. Look for that link at the top of the page that says Agricultural Infrastructure Investment Program. So I congratulate all of the award winners at this year's Agricultural Trades Show, and I am grateful for all you do on behalf of our state. Thank you.
Hi again. I'm circling back here to say that I hope you enjoyed this segment and just want to thank you again for joining us. And also, from all of us here at the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, I want to share our best wishes to you for a happy and healthy new year ahead. We hope to see you all again soon.